There is one way not to draw a human body, and that's like this. Maybe you already saw that there are different professionals that approach all of this in a completely different way. Someone who's doing gesture drawings would likely start out a bit differently than someone who's going for a detailed close-up shot in a comic or manga. All of these approaches are good in their own way, but they do serve different purposes. And today I'll show you 5 of them and what they are good for, and which one you should be using. Hi, Marcel here, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of what materials you should be using first. Because especially beginners often ask, what kind of pencils or paper should I use for that? And there are 2 answers to that. The first one is, it ain't important. I sometimes even use some cheap printer paper and a ballpoint pen when practicing. If you're just doing this to practice and get better, it honestly doesn't matter. But if that's an unsatisfying answer to you and you want more, because you just don't like the look of this or whatever, I recommend a hard H pencil for sketching out your basics and a soft B pencil for all of the details. When I was drawing manga, that's how I sketched out my manga pages, for example. So you're having a very faint body of guidelines that's easy to erase, and then going in with a jet black B pencil for all of those crispy details. I see a lot of beginners draw with a very dark pencil first, and I don't think I need to tell you why that's something you don't want to do if your finished drawing's supposed to look decent and pretty. But like I said, if you're just practicing, you shouldn't care about the looks. If you want to improve, it's all about the quantity here. And that's hopefully answering all of your questions about art supply. Alright. For practicing, I would literally use the cheapest paper that you could get your hands on, just so you don't feel guilty about scribbling on it. If you want to go real hard with practicing though, you should totally get a sketchbook in order to track your progress. Again, literally any sketchbook's fine. I also have sketchbooks that I just scribble stuff in. Though, if you want to get real high quality paper for manga and stuff, just take a look at my art supply list. My pencils, my sketchbook, and paper are all there. Is that enough? But what else would you want? Oh yeah, right, erasers. Yeah, we're not gonna use erasers today. Don't give me that look, you'll just figure it out once we're drawing. Like a sir. Okay, here's an overview of all 5 methods that we're gonna be looking at. But that's obviously 6 methods. What? There are 6 methods on screen. Yeah, actually, the last method is going to be the method that I'm personally using when I'm drawing my artworks, but that's something for the end of the video. We're taking a look at number 1 first. So, this is a method that you're probably most familiar with. The first method is your usual box method, having a body and splitting it up into some very basic shapes. That's a method that I'm usually showing to beginners because it's the easiest to grasp at first. The common consensus here is that joints are drawn with orbs while limbs are drawn as cylinders. But regarding pelvis and ribcage, some people draw them as boxes, while others just use more natural shapes that more resemble the actual ribcage and pelvis. Now, which one is better? Well, I would say it kinda depends on your skill set. Let's say you have problems with drawing humans in perspective, then drawing boxes is definitely more useful for understanding these poses a lot better. In this drawing, you would totally get how the pelvis and ribcage are angled. But with more natural shapes, this isn't quite as clear and obvious anymore. You should totally try out both in order to see what you prefer. So you should definitely use this method if you're still a beginner. It's pretty easy to get into. You also don't need any anatomy skills for this one, and also, if you're still struggling with depicting some trickier poses, the box version might help you wrapping your head around that. If you want to read more into that, there's a whole section about that topic in my book that I've published, but don't worry, that book's also for advanced artists as well. It's on Amazon, by the way, in case you're interested. Now, let's hop on to the next method. Alright, the first method's fine for drawing your run-of-the-mill cookie cutter body, but this method's already falling apart if you want to draw someone with a different body type, like Americans. Instead of using a cookie cutter skeleton and applying it to every body like in the first method, you would rather figure out someone's individual shapes because every human body can look differently. So you would obviously use different shapes for different bodies. There is no set rule which shapes to use, you would decide this on a case-by-case basis. I'm calling this the sculptures method because, you know, it's just like someone carving wood or marble would first carve in some rough shapes, and these shapes look completely different depending on your reference. And yes, this works with slender bodies as well, you just need to get an eye for splitting a body into different basic components. But no worry, that's something you get by practicing this method a lot. I actually think this method is really underrated when it comes to drawing proportions specifically. So if you still feel like the bodies you're drawing are too short or too long or whatever, maybe give this method a shot. It's also pretty nice for more complicated things like hands. You know, etching them in like this can be really helpful sometimes. Also, it's obviously great for drawing very individual looking bodies. The only downside I could think of is that all of the simplification might look a bit stiff, so maybe use this one mainly for practicing body and proportions. Alright, on to the next one. For this method I need you to look at these mighty man bosoms. Oh, you can't clearly see them. Alright, maybe now you can. I think you might know where this is going, because with the previous version, you sometimes might run into the problem of, what the hell am I looking at? You know, just like with the man titties from before, shadow gives you more spatial awareness. And the same goes for your drawing. Spatial awareness is absolute key here. And you don't need to try very hard with this. I know a lot of y'all struggle with shading, but just indicating these shadows with some simple planes is more than enough. For this method, you don't have to be like a Da Vinci. So yeah, that's obviously not a technique that I would recommend if you never touched a pencil before, but it's really underrated and it's such an easy way to make your drawings look more understandable. Again, if you don't believe me, think about the man boobies from before, it really paid off. Also, it looks nice. Next one. Now, if you feel like your drawings are looking too stiff, this is the method for you. This is a method that's used in figure and life drawing, where you're basically just drawing with curves. As you can see, this isn't about drawing anatomically accurate people, you're just trying to depict the dynamics here. I know this probably isn't what you had in mind while clicking on this video, but if you're practicing this way, you'll get a very good understanding of how the human body moves and how it's curved. TLDR, it's hard to get into at first because depicting a body with curves isn't as straightforward as just drawing a stickman, but it's the go-to practice for getting to know how the human body moves, also for understanding the dynamics behind it. So give it a shot, maybe draw like a head and a ribcage and then just go wild. This method is primarily for all of those of you who still struggle a lot with proportions. If you're a subscriber of this channel, you're already familiar with this because there's a video on drawing proportions that I have made where I showed you how I approach this. It's basically just about blocking out a rough shape for everything. Because you obviously want to check if your characters have the right sizes and dimensions before you want to do anything else. And people see this and think, nah, that's way too easy, but just give it a shot, okay? If a human body's still too hard for you, there are some simpler exercises to get started with. It's all explained in my video about proportions. But this can't be right. Isn't this way too simple? Would you draw a body like that? Well, I understand that question, and that's the point where we are taking a look at the last method, aka my method of drawing, which I would actually say isn't really my method, but it's basically every advanced artist's method. And it's all of the above. When I'm drawing a body, I really do it depending on exactly what I'm drawing. Every method has a good way to put it to use, and so there's no one-size-fits-all method. And that's that's exactly why you should be giving all of these methods a shot. Just view them as 5 different skills that you could always use once you get a chance to. There's a reason why pros scribble pages upon pages with guidelines, because they have their very individual way of drawing bodies. And these methods are always some combination out of the methods that I've been showing you today. And instead of copying someone, why don't you give all of these a shot and try drawing the way that works out the best for you. Now, in case you would want to watch more... Okay, here are all of my tutorials on screen right now that I've ever made on this channel. I've made tutorials on basically everything. Maybe there's something you still want to learn. Now, I hope I could help you out today. My name's Marcel, and I'll see you guys next time.